Okay, so this is the orientation session of the PLR Setup Masterclass. And in the orientation, I want to just kind of let you know that the branding process in in the PLR setup is always going to be a separate thing. Because really what we call the branding process, which is sort of changing the graphics and making sure the graphics reflect your logo, make sure it reflects what you're trying to say, has a lot more to do with strategy. And really more should go into that in terms of making sure that your USP is included. And so this is probably needs to be covered in a separate in a separate vein, right? If we covered branding along with if we covered branding along with making sure that we set up things correctly, we'd miss some things in the branding process and we'd skip some things in the setup process. So that's a separate process. The other process is the repurposing process. And the repurposing process may not necessarily be fully relevant to the setup process, because what we're trying to do when we repurpose things is we're trying to make sure that we're taking the assets in a PLR package and we're putting them to use in a different way that suits our brand or suits our purpose. And really, that's a separate process from the branding process. There's a separate process from the setup process. So again, this is not something that we want to cover in this course. Here's what we want to get started with, and I want to say this at the outset, is you should already have in place, before you start the setup process, what you want to add in terms of your offer. So whatever you're going to be giving to the customer, this is the stage that you should be when you start to set up your PLR. So in other words, in many cases, what you're going to do is you're going to take everything that's in the PLR package and you're going to deliver that to the customer. I think that's great, although I think you should also be delivering some kind of additional value. You should be adding in some kind of additional bonus. And again, whether or not that's going to be part of the branding repurposing process just kind of depends, but whatever else you're going to add, it should be ready by the time you get to this stage. You should also have in place what you're going to be doing in terms of bonus. I think I just kind of said that, but if you're going to be adding in some additional videos, if you should be going to be adding in some additional audios, those things should already be in place by the time you get here. So there shouldn't be anything else you're going to be putting in the package by the time you start the setup process. This is the final thing you're going to be doing before you start driving traffic. In other words, your marketing strategy should be in place. Your branding strategy should be in place. Everything you're going to be changing, all those things should be done. If you're changing the graphics, that should be complete. You should not be doing that at this stage. You should already be ready to start creating something that's going to be traffic worthy. Right now, the other thing that you should have at this point is you should have your domain name. You should have a delivery account and a hosting account. I'm going to talk about the delivery account because the delivery account is basically where you're going to store the content you're going to be delivering to the customer. Now, in some cases, if you're using a system like, let's say, S2 Member, where you can store the files in the same place where you're hosting them, and then you can protect them in a different way that you're going to do otherwise, then that is a cause for maybe perhaps using a delivery account that's going to be in the same place as your hosting account. But in general, you should already have your domain name and a delivery account. Now, what do I mean by a delivery account? I'll tell you that here in a minute. And probably the most important thing that I do want to say here in the orientation is you don't have to have multiple domain names to create multiple PLR offers, right? You don't have to have that. And so in this case, you don't have to have, if you're going to have a Facebook PLR package, you don't have to have a domain name. It's going to be Facebook PLR. You can have yourdomain.com /Facebook PLR. And in some cases, that's going to be an easier thing for your customer to understand, especially going to have multiple products, than if you have all different domain names, which could be cost prohibitive depending on your marketing, your marketing decisions. Right now, you should probably already have some kind of business-related PayPal account. You should have an active JVZoo Warrior Plus account if you're going to go that route. Now, the minimum you need to have is going to be a PayPal account, right? And you can have something like ThriveCard, Warrior Plus, or JVZoo, but typically they're going to require some kind of payment system, and that payment system, for the most part, if you're going to be working with people in the make money online niche, you're going to be working with a PayPal account, right? So you're going to need to have that at minimum. So that should really already be in place. If you're not ready at that point, you should be getting there very quickly. So you'll be getting and establishing a PayPal account, and it really should be, if possible, it should be a business-related PayPal account. In some cases, you might start with a standard account, and it will take payments. But what I will tell you is that they will really want you to have a business account, which is a different designation, allows you to take different payments, and gives you a different level of, let's say, I wouldn't say security, but it gives you a different level of scrutiny in terms of the payments that come into your account right now. And the goal of this entire course, right, is for you to be ready for traffic to come to your platform. So right now, if you sort of have the PLR and it's sort of out there and it's not hosted, it's not ready, the goal is to get you ready so that you can do this yourself a couple of times, so that you're doing it over and over again, so you can do it almost in your sleep. If you practice I'd say the steps we're going to be walking through, you're going to be able not only to teach other people, you're going to be able to teach your outsourcer how to do it. You're going to be able to teach a family member how to do it. You're going to be able to teach even a client or a customer how to do it. So even if you have a client, right, let's say that part of your business is to do this for someone. If you're a marketer and you're listening to me right now, probably one of the most valuable things that you can do at this point would be to create a product for someone, to get it set up and get a buy button on there. You would be surprised at the number of people who already have traffic. They already have people looking at them. They already have, let's say, a platform. What they don't have, what they don't necessarily fully understand, is how to set up a digital product. And if you're not necessarily wanting to go out and market people and direct people to your sales page, one of the things that you can do is you can create a service doing the very thing that I'm going to be showing you how to do in this course. So again, think about that. If you like performing a service, if you don't necessarily want to sell the product, but you want to do this for someone else, set a price tag on doing this for someone and start setting up their product. It is a valuable service in this market. So let's talk about what a setup should do. So by the time that a setup is complete, what should we expect? What should your system do once it's set up? Well, first, a properly done setup should collect leads before you make a sale. So if somebody comes to your website, they come to your web presence, or you direct them into something that you have, you should have a system set up that collects leads before the sale. If you don't have that, this is part of what the setup process is going to do for you, and you should have that by the time your full setup is done. A properly done setup should pre-sell your prospect leads. So you should have messages, and you'll typically get this from your PLR package, where you can take the emails and you can actually pre-sell your offer. Well, you want to make sure those emails are set up inside of your autoresponder and that they're ready to go when a person either comes to you as a lead, or even if they come to you from the sale, you should be collecting leads. A properly done setup should present your sales page. So in other words, your sales page should be ready to go. Now again, you might have to learn a little HTML, but you don't have to know a lot. And in most cases, if you're not changing the sales page a lot, you should have a sales page that reflects what you wanted to say. Now again, when you get a sales page from a PLR package, it's not expected that you use it word for word. It's expected that you change it to suit your language. And again, this is not an HTML course, but we are going to show you how to go in and make some basic changes so that the sales page reflects the things you wanted to say. Please, when you get a sales page, if you get a PLR package and you want to host the sales page, please change the language, right? Change the language to make sure it says and it talks the way you talk. One of the disconnects, and one of the things I find, even if all you want to do is you want to get the offer and you want to get it up and you want to get the host, you want to drive traffic to it. The idea behind having a sales page done for you is so that it becomes a template for you to make changes. It's not for you to use verbatim as is. Because one of the disconnects that happens is somebody comes to that sales page and it doesn't sound like something you say. It doesn't sound like your webinars. It doesn't sound like your training. And you want to make sure that the language in your sales page sounds like you. You don't want it to sound hypey. You don't want it to sound like something that's not you, not unless you're a hypey person, right? If you are a hypey person, and let's say that the sales page you get, it's not hypey enough. Make sure it says things the way you want them to be said. Now, a setup should be facilitating the buying process. So in other words, you've got to have a buy button on there, right? So the first thing and foremost thing is you've got to get the right buy button, and the buying process should happen. When your process is set up, it should send people, your buyers, to the upsell sales page, right? So that's part of the setup process. So in other words, they buy the front end, they should be sent to the back end. Right? Now, that's a process. It's not a difficult process, but that's what your setup process should do. Your setup process should send your buyers to the right download page. Let's say that they only buy the front end. They choose not to buy the back end. They should then be sent directly to the correct download page to get the correct product. If they buy the upsell, they should be sent to the correct download page to get the upsell and the front end. Right? So again, it's not a difficult process, but it's one that your setup process should do. Your setup process should collect leads on the sale of your product. This is probably going to be the most important thing you're going to do. If somebody buys your product, they click and buy, you want to make sure that you have a process in place to collect the lead on the basis of that sale. If you're not doing that, what you're really doing is you're really only building yourself for a one-time sale. You are setting your business up to work extremely hard to get your next sale, because you won't be able to contact the people that are actually buying your product, who actually liked what you had to say, who liked your pre-sale. These are going to be the people that you want to continue to market to. And if you don't market to them, or if you miss the opportunity by not collecting the lead on front, then what you're doing is missing an opportunity. Now, a setup should include your unique bonus, right? So again, now we talked about having a bonus. If you're going to use a PLR package and you're going to use it as is, you're going to use a sales page, one of the things you're going to be able to do to differentiate, and one of the things you can do to almost assure a second sale, is to have something awesome as a bonus, but you want to have that inside of your sales page. You want to be able to deliver that on your thank you page, and that should be part of the setup process. In fact, listen, you should not even be considering hosting a PLR package without a bonus, right? Even if it's not going to be something personal, please put something else in the package that's going to be unique. One of the questions that you probably have heard, maybe you've asked it, I've heard it a lot, is how do I make this if everybody else has it? Well, one of the ways you make a sale when everyone else has it, one of the ways you make a second, third, and fourth sale from even the person who bought me the first time, is to have something awesome in it that reflects you, that you know your customers and the people who are buying from you want. There are going to be times, I've done it myself, where I have bought something strictly on the basis of the bonus. Right? So if you have something that's going to be awesome, it should be in this setup process. You should already have it ready to go. And if you're going to be recruiting affiliates, your setup process should be ready for your affiliates to find your link and promote. Right, so what are we going to be doing in the PLR Setup Masterclass? We're going to be doing basically over-the-shoulder instruction. We are going to leave time for questions at the end. So we go through the process. Then at each stage, we're going to stop for questions, and we're going to take your questions, and then we're going to move on to the next session. So this is the orientation. We are then going to be doing next. We're going to start with a thank you page. And we're going to start with the thank you page, because the thank you page is really going to be, it's going to drive everything else, right? So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to take the links that you place in from your delivery account, you're going to be placing them on your thank you page, and that's going to drive everything else. So that's really the last thing we need to do first. We start with the thank you page. We start with the thank you page for the front end. We start with the thank you page for the upsell. The next thing we're going to talk about is your autoresponder and email system. And again, that's going to be the next thing, because in some cases, what you are going to need to do is you're going to need to put something on your thank you page to ask for the lead. Now, again, not every system you're going to have. is going to collect that lead on the sale. So one of the things you're going to need to do, I call it bolt and suspenders, is to make sure you are asking someone for their email address once they make the purchase on the download page. And we're going to be doing that. But you've got to have your autoresponder set up. You've also got to have your email set up, and that autoresponder and the email system really should replace the lead with the name of the sale. So in other words, someone comes into your marketing funnel, they become your lead, and then they make the purchase. We want to make sure that they're treated differently. We want to make sure that you have two separate lists. You want to make sure you have a prospect list. You want to make sure that you have a buyer's list. We are going to do that in this process. You want to make sure that your setup does that so that you can begin to talk to people in the ways they need to be discussed, in the ways they need to be communicated with, so that they will eventually buy. Right now, we're going to make sure you set up your squeeze page properly. We're going to make sure you set up your sales pages properly, right? That's going to be one session. And we're going to go through testing your system. That's going to be the last session. Okay, now, okay, so what we want to do, right, is in this orientation session is to do some basics. We're going to kind of get the preliminaries out of the way. So we're going to take what we are going to be delivering in the course. We're going to be taking what we're going to be delivering as the product to the customer, and we want to upload content to a delivery system. Now, once again, this is going to be a non-secure way of delivering the content. Right now, you're going to secure it by making sure that the download page is not going to be something that someone can guess. If you want to secure the content, you can do that and go one extra step. In most cases, what you're going to be doing when you do that can complicate things more than you want it to. Right? So if you want to get your project up and running, you want it, your download page will probably be not guessable, but it's not going to be fully secure. And I want to say that here at the outset. There are a couple of ways to do that. Someone here mentioned, I think Jim mentioned, Amazon S3. One of the reasons why I'm going to suggest that you consider one of the other systems and not Amazon S3 from the beginning, right, is because Amazon S3 is going to be based on the amount of bandwidth that you use. So in other words, if someone comes to download your file, let's say they got to download it 20,000 times. That's just an extreme. You're going to be charged for the bandwidth. Right? You're going to be charged for the number of times they actually go get the file. So in some cases, you've got really big files, you got really big video files. Then what's happening is someone's hitting that download. Every time they hit it, you're going to be not necessarily charged a lot of money, but the more volume you do, the more you're charged. Now, again, in some cases, when you're at a certain point, it's not going to matter. You're going to use Amazon S3. However, when you're just getting started and you want it to be simple and you're trying to be cost effective, you can use a site like Mediafire or Dropbox, right? These are non-secure on the one hand, but on the other hand, they will deliver your file in a good enough manner. Right now, if you do want to secure the content on the page, you can use a membership plugin like Wishlist Member. Right, so let's talk about that for a little bit, because it's going to be the same process you use in order to upload a bonus to your delivery system. So I'm going to go here into, and what we're looking at here is Mediafire, right? Very simple. And all you're really going to do here is once you have an account with Mediafire, and again, there is a free level of Mediafire. So if you're just getting started, you want to have a place to deliver your content. You can start with Mediafire, and I think it's scalable. Right, so what we can do is we're just going to create a folder here, and we're going to call this delivery. Right, you can actually call this what you want. I'm just calling it delivery for the sake of this tutorial. We're going to open up this area that says delivery. What I'm going to do then is all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my file. Right, and I've got it here. Right, I'm just going to drag and drop it into the directory. Pretty simple. Right, so again, Mediafire for the most part is going to be free to get started. There's going to be an upload process, so you'll see the file being uploaded there. Okay, and then once your file is done, you're going to use this link to deliver onto your thank you page. Again, very simple, right? Let's assume you have a bonus, same process, right? Making sure that you have enough space, of course. You'll grab the file, drag and drop it into the delivery area. Same process. Okay, so Jim's question is, are you dragging and dropping on a Mac or PC? I'm using a PC, but the same process you can use the Mac, Jim. Same process. Okay, so now we have our files there, right? So again, these are going to be the files that your customer is going to get. And they're going to get it. You're going to take this link and go to the thank you page when we get to that point. Right now, one of the other things you're going to need to do is you're going to need to create space for your sales pages on your hosting. And so you remember I talked about the fact that one of the things that we're not going to do here is we're not going to get a separate domain for each product. If you're going to have multiple products, what you're going to do is you're going to be using one domain name. Now, again, that might not suit your marketing plan, but in most cases, when you're getting started, the easiest way to get started is going to be for you to be able to use one domain and to use subdirectories. I'm going to show you how to do a subdirectory right now. Okay, so all you're going to do when you go inside of your hosting, and I'm using FileZilla. I'm going to go inside of my public HTML, and I'm going to create a directory. I'm going to create a directory for my product where I'm going to be uploading my files. And in this case, I'm going to upload, and I'm going to call this Facebook PD, right? That's my Facebook product. If I want to have a LinkedIn product, I can do another directory. I can call this LinkedIn PD. And all these are going to be separate directories for separate products. And I can do this as many times as I want. I can create one for YouTube. I can do one YouTube PD. So again, what's going to happen is when your buyer gets ready to see the URL, they're going to see yourdomain.com/Facebook PD. They're going to, when you get ready to show them the next product, it's going to be yourdomain.com/YouTube PD. So the idea here is, again, to create separate subdirectories so that you'll then be able to upload your content and create separate products, but all on the same domain, so you don't have to get two different domains. You don't have to get many different domains. Now, one of the other things you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get an email address that matches your domain and cPanel. So, for example, we're going to do here inside of our domain is we're just going to create an email address. Right now, this is going to be the email address that we're going to be using inside of our autoresponder. You're just going to click add an email account. You're going to give this email account a name and a password. Okay, so you're going to use this email address inside your autoresponder. And the reason you're going to do this is that most cases when you're trying to send email, you are going to be using the links that we created here from a specific domain name. You want to make sure that your email address in your autoresponder matches that domain, because otherwise what it looks like to an ISP is that you're doing something spammy and promotional. Right? So now it's not 100%, I'd say it's not going to be 100% certain, but it's one of the ways that you can communicate to the internet service providers as well as your email system that you are not doing something spammy. Right? Okay. Now, one of the other things you're going to want to do here in the preliminary stage is to set up a support system. I suggest that you set up some kind of support system that you can pay for on a monthly basis, like Zendesk or Freshdesk. And again, we're not talking about a great deal of money here. In most cases, I think with Zendesk, there is a free setup. I think as much as, I think it could be $9 a month. So again, it's a not necessarily an expensive one. I personally use Zendesk, and it will get your emails delivered to your customer. And that's really what you want more than anything else. There's another system called Freshdesk. Now, obviously, there are other systems, but these are going to be probably going to be the most reliable in terms of sending an email, in terms of ease of use, in terms of making sure that your customer is actually going to get an email when they have a support issue. Now, you can use a self-hosted one. If you choose to use a self-hosted one, there is one inside of cPanel called OS Ticket. We are going to work on the thank you page. We're going to start with the thank you page because once you set up your thank you page, you will then be ready to do the rest of the setup. And you really should do this page first, followed by, actually, and what it should follow is making sure that you have your deliverables in your delivery system. And we went over that in the previous session. If you recall, you'll notice here that we have our two files here inside of media file. Now, you can use Dropbox or any other delivery system that you want. Of course, you can also use a system where you're doing it inside of the same place where you're going to be putting your domain files, right? But I do not advise that. I advise that you get a system where people are going to be able to hit those files where they're going to be able to get them from a separate location, because what can sometimes happen is you can get a lot of traffic at the same time while somebody's coming to your sales page. You don't want them necessarily going to the download files, and in some cases where you have an ISP or you have hosting, all that traffic coming at the same time, they can throttle the traffic, right? So again, I suggest you get a delivery account. You can get Amazon S3. We talked about the fact that Amazon S3 last night will charge you for the bandwidth that you use. So the people that are coming to your site, if you get a lot of traffic, you get a lot of people downloading big files, that can cause you a problem. It can cause you an expense. Now, again, it's not going to be a big expense, but it is going to be an expense. Let's go back to the presentation. What we're going to do first, obviously, you want to make sure that you upload your pages and images to the server first. Now, that means then you're going to need to go to your FileZilla account. You're going to need then to decide where you're going to put your files or what you're going to name your system. Now, in this case, we're going to name this file, we're going to name this product Dragon. So we're going to put a subdirectory there called Dragon. Right, so I'm going to look inside of Dragon here. You notice there's not going to be any files. What I'm also going to be able to do then is once I place my files there, I'm going to be able to see those files inside of that subdirectory. Right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab my thank you page, which is the download page here. I'm just going to grab all these files. And I'm going to drag and drop them into FileZilla, into the directory I just created. Right, and actually what I can do here is I can call this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this something separate. I'm going to call this DL, and I'm going to give this thank you 2018, or thank you DR. Right, I'm going to move all those files inside of that subdirectory. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test out this directory. So I'm going to copy the URL. I'm going to go to my incognito browser. I'm going to place that URL inside of the address bar. When I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the public HTML. And then I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to bring this all the way back to the beginning. I'm going to put HTTP. You put HTTPS if you already have a secure domain. And then what we're going to do is we should be able to then see our download page or our thank you page. All we did was upload our documents to a directory inside of our FTP. Right? That's all we wanted to do right now. We haven't connected anything. We just want to make sure that our files work. Okay, so to go forward now, what we're going to do now is we're going to now start to edit this page. So we've uploaded our pages to the server. We've checked the appearance. Our appearance is good. We're now going to check the URL. We just did that, right? So that's what we did when we went to this URL based on the directory that we put this in. And we want to change that URL to make it unguessable, right? So here's what we want to do. I'd like to then change this to something that's going to be not guessable. So I'm going to change the name of this to, maybe I'm going to change the name. I'm going to append that with a number, right? I might append this with 723 or something like that. But I just want to make it so that it's not guessable. Right, then that's going to be our directory. So then I'm going to go back. I can then copy my URL. And I can then see that new URL. Remember, I'm going to take the public HTML out. I'm going to reduce the FTP domain. And then this is now my new URL for my thank you page, right? So I just wanted to change that number or that URL so that it can't be guessed, because we're not going to secure this domain, this URL. We're not going to secure the content on there. We're going to make this easy to get to. And so in order to do that, we're just going to make this something that's hard to guess. Right now, what we're now going to do is we're now going to get that link that we created from our delivery location, right? So that means now that we're going to go back to the area where we uploaded our files. In this case, we have something inside of MediaFire. We can go to this download arrow or drop down arrow. We can then copy the link. That link is then copied to our clipboard. We now have that link inside of our clipboard. And now what we're going to do is we're going to change the HTML code inside of the thank you page file. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to this file and we're going to change the index file here. Now in some cases what you're going to have here is you're going to have a page that says thank you.html. Now in this particular product, what you have here is you have a separate subdirectory and you have an index file. And again, all that does is make it easy for you to be able to change the file. So we're going to then right click this file and I'm going to open this inside of my HTML editor. Now currently I'm using Adobe Dreamweaver. You could be using something like Composer. You can use something like NVU if it's free, or whatever your HTML editor is. You are then going to open this index file with that editor. So I'm now going to click this box. That's going to open up this file inside of my HTML editor. Now that's going to take a minute because of the timing. Okay, so we have opened this up inside of the HTML editor. Now, most HTML editors will allow you to split the screen between what you can see as well as the code. What I like to do is to go to the split screen. That allows me to see the page. It allows me to see the code at the same time. And pretty much where I place my cursor inside of the page, it'll also be in the same place inside of the code. If I highlight the code, I can also be in the same place on the screen. Right now, that's what Dreamweaver does, and indeed, most HTML editors do the same thing. So what I'm going to do now on the thank you page is I'm now going to scroll down. I'm going to find this download page. If you have a link for the one you're using, you can use that. I'm going to highlight this button, and then I'm going to find it in the code. Right, so you'll see it here in the code. You'll see there that there is a space here for the reference as well as the image source. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that URL that I just copied. I'm going to put it in between the quotations for the link reference. Right, so all I'm going to do now is I'm going to click Control V. And what I've done is I've taken that media file URL and I placed it inside of the quotations. Right, so all we've done now is we have then made this button clickable to our file. Right, so now we've pretty much done what we needed to do, except for the fact that if we have a bonus, we may not necessarily have a place for it if there's no button there. Right, so if I have a bonus, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to want to place some kind of text in this space. I'm going to make that text clickable. And typically, the easiest way to do that is going to be to find some existing text and then to place that text someplace on the page, either above or below that URL. And what I'd like to do here is I'd like to place my bonus here. That's going to be the easiest place to place the bonus. And all I really need to do here is I'm going to then take my cursor, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a break command, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a BR. I'm going to put another BR and bracket. I'm going to then take this same text, because all I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy that text. I'm going to place it after the break. I'm then going to put another break in there. I'm going to click now in here so I can see, okay, so there's my text. What I'm probably going to want to do now is I'm going to want to then take that text out. What I like to do then is I like to then center things, right? So one of the things that I can do is I can then very simply, I can put a center command in there. Let's place that down on the line where it is. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to put it behind that text. Okay, I'm going to click inside of here, and now my text is going to be centered. Now what I want to do is I want to change this text to say something like, click here to download your bonus. So I'm going to edit this text to say what I want it to say. I may put it in all caps. Okay, I'll click back inside of there so I can see. Now I have my content, my line here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to highlight this. And inside of Dreamweaver, what I can do here when I highlight that text is I can then insert a hyperlink for that text. Right, you'll see there that it's going to link to this text. I'm then going to place in my bonus link. So I'm going to go back now to my Mediafire. I'm going to grab that link. I'm going to create another link. Now I'm going to come back here. I'm going to place that link inside of the text area. I'm now going to click OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save my file. So now I need to save the thank you page file. Right? That's what I do next. So we're going to come back here. I'm now going to save that file. And now all I need to do then is I need to upload this index file to the very same location where the other files are. Right? So now I've saved the file. I can find my folder where the file is saved. I can find my HTML. I'm going to click inside of there. I'm just going to now drag and drop that index file to that same location. FileZilla is now going to ask me if I want to overwrite the file. I should say yes. I'm then going to click OK. That file is now overwritten. Now I should have my new file in the area where my website files are. So now I should be able to go back to test that system or test that page. I should then be able to refresh that page. I now see my link for downloading my bonus content. We've now got our content link here. So now our customer should be able then to click this link, right, to get the file, and they've got the other file. Okay, so there's our file name again. Okay, so that's pretty much going to be our thank you page. We've uploaded our file to the server. We've tested the download link in our incognito browser and we're able to get it. So now we are then ready then to assume that our thank you page is now complete and we're now ready to move on to the next section. And so we're going to walk through this process inside of GetResponse. And GetResponse is going to be pretty similar to any of your other autoresponders, Aweber, MailChimp. For the most part, it's going to work the same, right? And so once you understand this, you'll be able to do it in whatever your autoresponder is. And even if you have another squeeze page other than the one we're going to be working with, you'll be able to do this. So let's go ahead. Okay, so we're going to be working with your squeeze page tonight, your squeeze page. And as I said, this is not a straightforward process. So this isn't something that you're going to be able to carry from line by line directly into another system. So some of this is going to be peculiar to whatever it is that you have. So if you have Aweber, this is going to look slightly different. If you have Constant Contact, if you have one of the other ones, it's going to look slightly different. But the good thing about this is that once you've seen this process, you'll know what to look for in your individual autoresponder. And obviously, if you have GetResponse, you'll be able to do this right off the bat. Okay, now, the very first thing that I'm going to suggest you do is to upload your pages unedited into your server. Right, now I'm going to do that inside of FileZilla. So if you have FileZilla, I have FileZilla Pro, and you may have something different. That's okay. So if you don't have FileZilla and you have another system that you're using, that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my server. I'm going to do that off camera, and just going to jump in here to my server. I'm going to bring this back in front of you here. And then I'm going to go and look for the published HTML folder. And then I'm going to hopefully have already created some kind of subdirectory. So in this case, I'm going to create this. It's going to be 60 minutes, right? I'm just going to create a subdirectory, right? And so there's my subdirectory. There are no files in there right now. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to then put pages unedited into this directory. And so one of the ways that I can do that, of course, is I can go and use FileZilla and I can just double click all of the files, or I can drag and drop them. And so in this case, I like to see my files being done. So I'm going to drag and drop them here. So let's go to the actual folder. Right? So I'm going to show you what this looks like. So I'm going to open up the lead page folder. There's the folder for the squeeze page, and then here are all the files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those files, and I'm going to drag and drop them into the directory that I'm going to have for my squeeze page. And I'll drag and drop them over here. Hopefully you all understand that. I mean, you probably already have some kind of FTP program. This is probably pretty much elementary to you. But now I want to put those in there unedited because I want to always be looking at what this is going to look like on my actual server. I can look at my files inside of my web browser. It isn't always going to be reliable in terms of how your pages are going to look. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the squeeze page. And I'm going to open this up inside of my HTML editor. In this case, I'm using Dreamweaver. So I'm going to open this up inside of Dreamweaver. You can use whatever you're going to use, right? So if you're using a different one. Okay, so here is my squeeze page. Okay, and so basically I'm going to always use the split window, which is going to show me the actual HTML at the top, and then it's going to show me the code at the bottom. What I can do is I can take this directory, I can copy the URL, I can then go to, and I like to, when I'm testing this, I like to go to an incognito browser, right? So I'm going to do is I'm going to put this URL in here. Remember, I'm going to take out the public HTML when I'm testing. And then I'm going to take out this FTP. That's going to, because that will not give me a correct URL. And then I'm going to hit enter. And then here is my squeeze page, right? So basically, if I put my name and email address in here, I can put this in here, but this is not going to go anyplace because we don't have anything connected to it, right? So it's going to function right. The button's going to act right, but it's not going to do anything, and that email address isn't going to go anywhere, right? All I've done is I put these, I put the files on my server, and now they're on the web. I've uploaded my unedited pages to my server. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my autoresponder now, and I'm going to create a form inside of my prospect list, right? So I'm going to go and open this up. I'm going to go inside of my autoresponder. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to a specific form, right? Wherever I want to create the list, that's where I'm going to go to the form. So I'm going to open up one list here. And it's going to take me a minute to open this up. And you're going to have to do the same thing in your autoresponder. You're going to have to work inside of a specific list. Hopefully what you're going to be working with is you're going to be working with your prospect list, right? So I'm going to go here and I'm going to work with a prospect list. I'm going to make that the current campaign. And I think I called that prospect list. Okay, so now I have my prospect list. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a form inside of that prospect list, and then get response, you've got a menu for forms. So I can then go and create a form. Now in get response, they have a list builder wizard, but there's going to be something specific we're going to be looking for. And you're going to look for this something specific inside of yours, even if you don't have a wizard. You're going to notice a lot of patterns here, and we don't want that pattern on top of our squeeze page, right? What we want is we want a blank form. So that's what I'm going to click here. I'm going to click the blank form. So all I want to do is I want to get choices in the blank form section. You're going to notice I have all blank forms, and that's where I want to start with. Now I'm going to take the most simple one here. And this is going to be the one I want to work with. This is going to be the template that I am going to work with. I'm going to click Use Template. And then that template's going to load up for me to work inside of Get Response. Now again, you're going to have something similar inside of your autoresponder, and you'll be able to work with it in that way. Okay, so now we have this form. Now obviously, we want to be able to put this form inside of the HTML so that it appears right here, right? So we want to get as close to this as we can, right? Unless you really do want to change it. Now, obviously, you're going to have some latitude here. So what I'm going to do inside of Get Response first is I'm going to then take out this text. And in Get Response, all I have to do is click that text. I can click this trash button, and then that's no longer there. Right, so now that area is going to actually be gone. What I'm going to do also is I'm going to click inside of the background. Right, so I've got the background and I've clicked it. I want to then look at the layout. I also want to look at the style. Right, so with the style, you'll notice that the background here is white. And what I want to do is I want to change this background to transparent. right? So I'm going to click OK. Now, does everybody see how that form now is going to be transparent, and that it's not going to reflect any color, and it's going to reflect the color of the background of my existing squeeze page. Does everybody understand that? Now, if you look at this, if we were to look at this form, right, you'll notice here that this form has enter your name, enter your email address. Now, we don't have to have it that way. You'll notice here that these fields are reversed. Now, we can change them and switch them if we want to, or we can just leave them, right? We can leave them that way. So in this case, I'm going to leave them that way because I'm going to actually change the HTML. So I'm not going to reverse these things. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to reduce the size, right? And then I'm actually going to click inside of this email address area. And I'm going to look at that box here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out that label, right? And I'm actually going to take out this label. And then I'm going to write in here your best email address. I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to take out this label that says first name. I'm going to take out this text that says help test goes here. And then I'm going to write in here your name. Okay, now what I can do here is I can actually slide these a little closer to each other. And that's what I'm going to do. Right, and then I'm going to scrunch this. I can take this submit button, I can move it up some. I can scrunch this some more. All right, so now I have a pretty basic squeeze page form. Right, so now what I want to do is I'm going to stretch this a little bit. And then I'm going to stretch these a little bit. I'm going to stretch this one out. I'm going to take this submit button. I'm going to move it to the middle. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I like to just kind of check and see how my form is looking so far. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save and publish this form. And what you're going to notice is that I have some JavaScript code here. And I want to actually use the JavaScript code because what this is going to do, this is going to allow me to make changes and to check them on my form in real time. If I choose to use a pure HTML code, I would have to go back and change that form every time I make an edit. So I'm going to copy this JavaScript code. I'm going to copy that to my clipboard. And then I'm going to go inside of the code here. Right, I'm going to now go to this form because I want to replace this form. Right, so I'm going to look for this form. And the entire form is here inside of the code. Let's lift this up some so you can see it. Let's copy all of this. And then let's hit Control V. All right. So if I click inside of here now for my form, I'm going to then see it's going to look invisible because it's JavaScript. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this now. I'm going to save this now as an index file, but I'm not going to copy over the index file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call this toIndex, right? Because I don't want to copy over that index form yet. So I'm going to call that toIndex. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this form, and I can then double click this form to see how it's going to look in the browser. Right, so let's double click this. Okay, so that's probably not quite what we want, right? We probably need this to be a little wider, and we may or may not want that green submit button. So we want this to be a little bigger. We may want this form to be a little wider. So we've got JavaScript. So what we can do now is we can go back inside of our form, and we can go back to the form creator. That's going to open up that same form we were working with. What we probably want to do here is we probably are going to want to just widen out. We want to widen this out some. Let's widen this one out to the same width. Let's pull these on top. Let's bring these kind of close to each other. Let's narrow down our box here. And then let's save it. Okay, so we've got our code here. We've saved the form. Now what we can do is we can go back and we can look at the same form, right? So now all we need to do is we need to then refresh this page, and we'll be able to see our form that we changed. Okay, so now this is probably off center a little bit, right? So I don't necessarily like that, the way that looks. So let's go back here and let's bring this in a little bit here. Let's bring this one in. Let's take this out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to save this. I'm going to come back to my JavaScript. Okay, I think that's close enough, right? So now let's say that I don't like this button. Right? I want to change this button. I actually want it to be closer to the one that we had before. So what I can do inside of here in get response is I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back to the form creator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on top of this submit button. And then whenever I click on top of something, I'm working with it here. I'm going to now go to the style, right? And so what I'm going to do is I think what I really like to do here is the first thing I really want to do is I want to take this text. I want to make the text transparent, right? I'm going to click OK. So now the text is no longer there. And what I'm going to do is I want to then look at the button. Now I want to make the button, I want to make the hover color transparent. I want to make the color transparent. I want to make the gradient transparent. And what I want to do is I want to take this image and I want to choose one of the images inside of the package. So I'm going to go and grab an image. That is our button. Now I've already uploaded the button here, but if you would just go to your computer, you click upload from computer, you would find the button here, right? We would just upload that button. Now I've already uploaded it here, so it's already here inside of get response. So I'm going to put this in the center. I'm going to scale this up. Make sure it fits the screen. I'm going to size this up here. And what I really want to do here is I want to take that shadow out. So I'm going to now make that transparent. I'm going to slide this button over. And I'm now going to save it and publish it. And so now all I have to do, because I'm using JavaScript, is I can refresh this. And there's my button. Okay, so we've got our button in there now. And so now what we're going to do here is we should probably rename this page, right? This page says thank you page. So I'm going to go inside of the text here. And I'm going to call this whatever I want to call it, right? I'm going to change the title to 60 minutes copy. I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to refresh. And now my page title is what I want it to be. Right now, basically what we've done here is we placed our form in here. And now when the individual puts their name and email address in, it's going to go inside of the form for the list I created inside of GetResponse. Right, so now let's go back to the form creator. And what we're going to do when we get back to the form creator now is we're going to work with this a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the thank you page. Now this is where GetResponse is going to send the person once they've opted in or once they've gone into our list. Right, so we want to be able to work with this now. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on the settings. I'm going to call this web form to the sales page. It's going to be for my campaign, my prospect list. I'm going to have confirmed opt-in, and I'm going to add them to my day zero list. Now, here's the important thing here. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to choose the thank you page. I'm going to choose a custom thank you page. And what I'm going to place here is I'm now going to place in here my sales page, right? Because what we want to happen is when the individual opts into our list, we want them sent to the sales page, and then we want them to get the autoresponder messages. Now, there's something important here that you want to do if you're going to do this. You want to make sure that the individual either gets their product with the sales page, or you can also make sure by placing the link inside of the first email in your automated series. Let me say that again. What you're going to do for the thank you page is you're going to place in here the sales page, but you also want to make sure that the person gets what they opted in for. And so what you can do is to either place it there on the sales page at the top, or if you don't do that, you need to make sure that they get the content in the first email that they receive from you in your automated series. Right? So what I'm going to put here is I'm going to find my sales page. Whatever our sales page is, we're going to place that sales page inside of here, and that's going to take them there as soon as they opt in. Right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to then click the Save button. And what I can do is I can actually then, I don't have to worry about this sales page. The thank you page is going to be the one that they're going to be sent to. So now what I can do is I can take my files and I can upload them to my server. So what I'm going to do here is I'm now going to go to the original index file. I'm going to rename that original index file to another number. I'm now going to change the one that I edited back to just plain index. And now what I can do is I can take these files and I can upload them to my server. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop them over here, or drag and drop them inside of this folder. And it's going to ask me if I want to overwrite. I'm going to say, yeah. Overwrite one more and say yes. Overwrite one more, I say yes. Overwrite one more, I say yes. Okay? And basically, I'm going to then say always use this action or apply this to the current queue. And so all my files are now copied. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my URL and I'm going to refresh it. And there is my button. And then my individual will then go to my list when they opt in. Okay, so we've added the code from our form to our squeeze page. We have made adjustments to our squeeze page form. We've added the sales page address as our thank you page. We've added our thank you page address to our first autoresponder message. Okay, now there is an easier way to do this. And what we can do, let's say that is just, everything I just did is just way too complicated, right? Let's say that was, you just kind of feel like, okay, you know what, that's a little too much for me. What we can do, and let's just say what you want to do is we're gonna go backwards here. We're not gonna save this. Okay, let's open up this index file. Okay, now I'm gonna go to the split design. And let's say that what I want to do is I just want to make this simple. Right? So I have this button. Right? So what I want something to happen when people click this button. What I can do is I can go back to get response. I can go to the forms creator. I can create a form. I can click the list builder wizard, and I can then just go and create a blank form. All right, I'm going to choose this template again. And this time, I'm not going to make any changes to the template, right? Because all I'm going to do is create a button, right? All I want to do is to create a link. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out this headline. I'm going to shrink this down. I'm going to take out the email address. In fact, I don't even really have to take that out again, right? In this case, I think what I'll do is I'll just take out this line that says help text goes here. I'll take it out here. I'm going to move these closer together. I'm going to move this submit button up. I'm going to scrunch this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click save and publish. I'm going to then get this link that says get response will host my form. I'm going to copy that link. Then I'm going to go back to my Dreamweaver. I'm going to connect that link to this button. All right, let's do it this way. We're going to go and we are going to get the properties of this button. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my link in there. And then I'm going to close that link. Okay, I think that's correct now. Now I can save it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go and look at that file. Okay. What's going to happen now is when the individual clicks this button, instead of going through the whole thing, when they click that button, it's now going to go to this form. Right? Now that's a simpler way to do it. So if you just want to place the button on top of your form, you can do it that way. Right now, the better way to do it is the first way that I showed you. But if that's just going to be too much and it's going to be a little overwhelming, then all you've got to do is to go and get this form, this button that says Get Response will host my form. You want to then place that button on top of your form by associating this hyperlink with the button. When they click the button, they get taken to the form that's already online. Okay, well, if that's it for tonight, everybody, we will work with the sales page tomorrow. And then I think I called it Testing Your System. What we're going to do is I'd rather title that session not testing, but building your system, right? And that's probably going to be, other than the orientation, is probably going to be the most important session, because we're going to then talk about mapping, right? And probably the best title would be Mapping Your System, because we want to map out where the pages go. And you need to have a map in your head before you start this process. And I didn't want to start with that, but I think it's a great place to end the course. All right, so if there are no questions, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Look forward to seeing you again. Have a great night. Pleasant tomorrow. Take care.